My mother-in-law's water faucet broke, and instead of calling a professional plumber, she called me. But first, she complained to my wife about the mountain of dishes in the sink and that she was annoyed by it. I know a lot about plumbing. So many people call me for help when something goes wrong and breaks. My wife told me to go fix a faucet at her mother's house. It was my day off, and I just wanted to relax in front of the TV. What do I get for this? I joked. She replied, "You're not little. Try to guess." I chuckled, despite my reluctance to go. I had to pack up and head to my mother-in-law's house on the other side of town. It was a long drive, about half an hour one way. I took my wife's words seriously, figuring that if anything went wrong, I could always say that she had given me permission for intimacy in bed when she sent me to my mother-in-law's. I'll play dumb. When I arrived, my mother-in-law was very grateful, realizing she had interrupted my day off. I calmed her down and asked her to tell me about the problem. She led me into the kitchen and sat me down at the table. As I got to work, I noticed that her robe was short and her beautiful knees were visible. As soon as I started fixing things, she asked if I had time to eat. I agreed, adding that I wouldn't mind some wine and a sandwich. My mother-in-law had recently celebrated an anniversary, and there were several bottles of wine on the windowsill. She readily went to the window, picked up a bottle, and poured it into glasses, just as she did, treating me to some candy. We enjoyed the wine and talked a lot. In the midst of our conversation, I managed to quickly fix the faucet, which only took 3 minutes. I didn't want to leave as we were having such a cozy time. My mother-in-law started complaining about her husband, saying that he has become so defiant lately and doesn't pay attention to her as a woman in bed. I offered to kick him out, but she only waved her hand dismissively. With a determined look in her eyes, she asked me how she could do without him. We continued to discuss the topic, emphasizing the importance of an active lifestyle for good health. I jokingly advised her to find a new lover and winked at her. My mother-in-law sighed again, mentioning how difficult it was to find a new lover at her age, as men tend to prefer younger partners. I reassured my mother-in-law by paying her a few compliments on her looks, especially her beautiful legs. She looked pleased and blushed slightly. We drank more wine and then we chatted. I jokingly pretended to be infatuated with older women and not interested in younger ones. My mother-in-law laughed and playfully scolded me. The wine had definitely had an effect. I stood up, kissed her, and we ended up lying on the couch. So much for fixing the faucet. After spending some more time at her place, I returned home. At home, my wife asked, "Why do you smell like alcohol?" She sniffed suspiciously at my clothes. "I just ran into a guy I know. I just stopped by for a few minutes." "Did you fix my mom's faucet?" she asked again. She's always so nosy. "Yeah, I fixed it," I replied, feeling annoyed. "Just leave me alone and let me rest." Exhausted, I collapsed on the couch and fell asleep, enjoying pleasant dreams and a feeling of warmth throughout my body. A few days later, while my wife was at work, I received a phone call. As expected, it was my mother-in-law on the line. "I don't understand something," she said with a laugh. "Someone promised to replace my lover, but they forgot the way to my house." I chuckled and jokingly replied that I hadn't forgotten anything, I was just busy with work. "As soon as you're done with work, come over. I bought some delicious wine, and I'll make your favorite sandwich," my mother-in-law said and hung up. I scratched my head, puzzled, thinking, so my mother-in-law took everything literally, deciding that I really want to replace her husband. I found the situation tempting. It wouldn't be difficult. Besides, if it had been a long time since I'd been with anyone but my wife, in my advanced years, I had become lazy. I quickly packed my things and went to my mother-in-law's house. She was very happy to see me and willingly helped me take off my shoes. She didn't know where to seat her dear guest. She finally sat down and immediately offered me a glass of wine. We relaxed, and the conversation became more interesting. We were back in that familiar situation. It was a delightful day, no doubt about it. My mother-in-law went for wine twice, truly getting into the holiday spirit. I loved spending time with her as she always has interesting stories to tell. By the time I got home in the evening, I was exhausted but satisfied. However, my wife began to feel neglected, complaining that I was always going out to visit and she was alone at home. She didn't know what was really going on. It all started innocently enough. My mother-in-law had somehow gotten it into her head that I was filling the void in her bed left by her bad husband. She took my playful banter too seriously. That's the thing about women. They tend to get carried away with their fantasies. I decided to play along and please her until she lost interest. It was a win-win situation for me. The more I indulged her, the more I enjoyed it. Everyone knows that old saying. She even managed to pique my curiosity. I didn't forget about my wife, although she had to take a back seat for a while. After a month of constantly running errands for my mother-in-law, I started to feel overworked and got a little bored with the routine. I needed a break, but my mother-in-law had other plans, and she practically dragged me to her place, unwilling to take no for an answer. She even called my wife and asked her to send me over because the faucet in the bathroom was leaking. My wife handed me the phone with a submissive look. I couldn't refuse. After all, family comes first, and she was a lonely woman in need of help. I went in reluctantly, but the lemonade she offered me piqued my interest, and the cycle of our adventures repeated itself. I soon realized that my mother-in-law was quite devious. She always found a way to get what she wanted. If she had something in mind, she would stop at nothing to achieve it. I even remember an occasion when I was trying to find her a new partner. I asked my acquaintances if any of them would like to meet a mature woman. I spoke well of her using all my charm. None of them were interested, except one friend. He boldly asked for my mother-in-law's contact information and did not hesitate to call her. They met a few times, but nothing substantial came out of it. Surprisingly, my mother-in-law took a liking to me. It turned out that I knew how to fix kitchen faucets better than anyone else. She wasn't stupid either. She knew not to rush me. If I felt I was needed, I came, and if not, she patiently waited for the right opportunity. Our meetings became rare but always pleasant. My mother-in-law sets the table, and the main centerpiece is the wine and her smile. I am happy with the way things are and don't want to change anything. As long as my mother-in-law respects me, everything will be fine, and I will be there to fix anything she breaks. That's how we've been living for 2 years now. Have you had a similar situation?